This is Jimmy.
And Scott.
And this is the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP Lacrosse. On this podcast, we will be discussing with athletes, coaches, and other professionals what specific mental techniques they utilize to prepare, compete, and recover. These are the questions that fascinate us, and we want to hear what our guests do to be their best mentally. And hopefully, you get a little something out of these episodes to help move you forward. On today's episode, we host Chuck Montana. Chuck is a Long Island native who graduated from Chaminade High School. He then moved on and graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point. During his time in the U.S. Army, Chuck rose to the rank of captain. He was company commander, U.S. Army Aviation Assault Helicopter Battalion, UH-60 Blackhawk, and Air Cavalry Platoon Leader, 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, Airborne. Chuck tells a similar tale of many kids growing up on Long Island, but his adventure landed him in the United Arab Emirates managing a team at a nuclear power plant. How did he and his family get there? It's a fascinating journey from the U.S. Army to producing energy. Chuck's formula of constantly being open to learning, preparing exactly as you envision your execution, knowing that an adjustment will be necessary when you least expect it, and leaving your ego in your duffel bag have helped him turn complex, multifaceted tasks into simple, repeatable steps that anyone can apply to their personal situation. It was an honor hosting him today, and I hope you learn and enjoy it as much as I did.
Hey, Jim. How you doing? Glad to be here.
Excellent. Thanks for coming. Now, to our listeners, Chuck is currently living in the UAE, so we are talking via WhatsApp. And just like here in New York during this coronavirus, the UAE is also on quarantine and shut down and all that craziness. So we're gonna spend some time with Chuck and have a really good conversation. So Chuck, how's things over in the UAE right now?
Well, Jim, they're pretty much the same as you guys got going on, just like you said. But people here are in good spirits. Everyone's working from home. Everyone's buttoned up in their house. Kids are doing distance learning on the internet. And we're just trying to get through this.
Yeah, I hear you. So fill us in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave a quick little intro, but
okay.
feel free to dive in.
All right. So my experiences in the areas of mental preparedness and getting ready to execute go way back. Greater than 25 years, even almost 30 years now. And I love to play sports. Played there on Chaminade High School in Long Island. I did mostly football and lacrosse. Loved it. Both sports were awesome. And that foundation of in that school and learning how to play really set the stage for successful areas later on in my career. But I can really trace it all back to the high school days, maybe even before high school, in CYO and the other Long Island sports.
Yeah. Your generation was always playing different sports. A lot of multi-sport athletes. Kids today are playing, one or two sports. Where your generation, even a lot of my generation, was multi-sport. Playing in the street, like all things like that, right? So you're talking about even that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, baseball and basketball in elementary school. Not to mention the pickup games of hockey and all the other types of playground sports we would do there in the neighborhood, right there in Fountain Street area.
Yeah.
The multi sports in high school, yeah, definitely. Some of us played, all 3 seasons, but most kids just did about 2 seasons.
Yep. Very nice. So
going into college, chose military academy. That worked a lot. They focused a lot on mental preparedness and getting your mind right. Focusing on victory, focus on preparedness, practicing like you play, practicing all the time like you execute. And it was a foundational type thought process.
Now, Chuck, even as a college student, like military academy or not, you're still, 18, 19, 20 years old. Did that foundation when you were being taught it, let's say in a classroom, maybe the theories of things, did it hit, or was it more experiential that it was like, oh, okay, well that's what that means, and now like it makes sense, or like as a 19-year-old,
Yeah.
was it like, you know, was it like a normal 19-year-old just hearing somebody say something?
No, there was actually curriculum and and classes where you would get together and they would teach you how to think.
Oh, really? That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there's I forget the name of the doctor who has a study there at the academy, but some of the core squad sports, the Division One sports, they have a real formal thought process, focus, with a vision. See yourself executing, see yourself playing, see yourself being successful. Really, really impressive program.
So a lot of
the type of program
visualization.
escapes me right now.
So
Yeah, a lot of visualization.
now, was visualization a big part of your preparation to become a pilot, or during your flights and things like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, transition from just college studies and sports, then you go into a career, any career. My first career was as a pilot in the Army, and flight school is flight school. It's a new thing. You're not born knowing how to do it, so you have to learn. And they do a real good job about the hands-on and the textbook studies. But in order for you to be ready for the next day, or for your upcoming flight exam or flight test, you have to, your mind has to be focused on it. And when you're sitting in the cockpit, or you're sitting behind a desk, or you're running a control room, you do have to have that vision. You have to think ahead. You have to be prepared. You have to do it once physically, and then you have to probably do it 10 more times in your mind,
Right.
To get ready.
Right. Do you remember your first flight as the lead pilot on a Black Hawk? Whether that was in flight school or after?
I mean, just go back to the flight school. In flight school, one of your big milestones is when you solo fly, meaning you fly without your instructor, or you fly without another pilot in the aircraft, and that's always a giant milestone, huge milestone.
I mean, it sounds it.
You're nervous. You're so nervous. Uh-huh.
So, like in a moment like that, what did they teach you to do to prepare for that? Because obviously, there's only so much you can really do to prepare, and then take up a whole aircraft by yourself, and then land it by yourself is pretty amazing.
Really, the basics of it is it's repetition. That's what we had to do. You every day you started it up. Every day you turned the switches. Every day you took off. You landed. You did your patterns. You studied your textbook for the technical values, the airspeeds and the different aspects of the technical nature.
Sure.
But really, you prepare by repetition, and you try to get that muscle memory. You can say muscle memory is only in sports. You can say muscle memory is only in weightlifting, but it's not. There's a muscle memory you have, and it can carry forward into other areas, in most areas, even professional desk jobs.
Yeah.
You can theoretically have a muscle memory.
Yeah, and that's actually a big piece of this whole podcast, is that we're trying to get that across to people, that you can use these analogies and you can use examples from other walks of life, but it applies to everybody, and it doesn't matter how old you are or what job you're doing. There's a process that can help everybody, no matter what. So that's awesome to hear. So just go back to flight school, but before that first initial solo flight, would you actually get into the aircraft and just like start it up and hit the switches without flying, like just to rep it?
We had simulators. We had simulators, and we had the real aircraft.
Okay.
And some days you had ground school. Some days you had ground school plus flying. And some days you had bad weather, so you just did things you didn't need to fly in. So yeah, there's different scenarios for all the context. But in the beginning, you take it slow. But simulators do that for you. You simulate,
Okay.
which is really a practice area. It's your practice zone. When you're flying, you really got to fly. You have to maintain your airspeed. You have to make sure that there's visibility and the winds are right. Your landing speed's accurate. In the simulator, that's an area where you can practice and spend time starting up, shutting down, emergency procedures, things you can't simulate in a real aircraft.
Right, without actually.
But simulation is key. I think simulation is key, and we do that on the practice fields all the time. We simulate a defense. We simulate an offense. We put in people standing in to disrupt the play, to cause a variable,
Sure.
to cause something to not go right. So that's really a simulation, because in a game it's fluid, and whether it's a game on the sports field, or it's a game at the office, or it's a briefing, or a big presentation. When you're doing it, things happen, and you got to be able to react. You got to be able to stay calm. You got to stay focused.
How much of your training was about trying to distract you and disrupt you and screw you up? And at what point does the military, if they do, at what point do they introduce that stuff?
Okay, so relatively early. I mean, you got to get your basics down, and we even in things that are not sports, you have to get your blocking and your tackling down.
Yep.
And you have to get your catching and passing down.
100%. Yeah. Well, I could imagine
once you get that down,
I could imagine the military could do something to freak a young, potential pilot, or fill in the blank. They could freak them out too early, right? And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about as long as you have your foundation, then you're able to handle some of these distractions, right?
Yes.
But if you don't have those foundations, the distractions can really mess you up, and maybe make you change a sport, change a career, something like that.
Yeah, and that's a good message to young athletes, to young men and women. Period.
Yeah.
Is get your blocking and tackling down. Spend the time on the fundamentals. Get your head straight in those areas. Don't be so eager to always do the advanced skills or progress before you're ready.
Right.
That's what coaches. There's life coaches for businessmen and businesswomen. There are. Does Tiger Woods? Does he have a coach? Yes, he does. Why would Tiger Woods have a coach? And
you're right. Yeah.
Even the youth today are like, oh, I don't need a coach. I know everything. Some people do. Some think like that. Some kids don't.
Yep.
Some people in business think like that. But you got to always say, okay, if Tiger Woods has a coach, why? Maybe I should listen to my coach. And
seek somebody out that's going to help you if you don't have one.
Exactly.
Yeah, whether it's a mentor or a coach.
So you trust in that wisdom. So getting to my point is the coaches, they have the wisdom. They can tell when you're ready, or they can tell when you need to be pushed. And, there's got to be, obviously there's trust there. And get the fundamentals down, then you can throw in some of those variables and start doing advanced development.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, like something we tell our athletes all the time is really like your habits are only as good as when the shit hits the fan. And then, in sports, you always get a second chance. So you'll know where you stand based on that feedback. really, I mean, everyone's excited to play or train when it's 70 degrees and sunny, but you're really training for when it's 30 degrees and the sleet is in your eyeballs and you can't see and you can't feel your hands. That's when you'll know how good your habits are. So I'm sure there's a ton of equivalencies that pass over into the military or even in what you do currently. Right?
Yeah. Technical jobs of any kind of job. You have to be prepared for when you're in the red zone, when you're at the final 10 minutes and you're behind. Because if you think that it's only going to happen in sports or in high school on a test, it happens. It happens in the boardroom. It happens in the courtroom. It happens while you're writing papers.
Yep.
It happens when you're raising a family. It happens in all areas.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Very true. Very true. And we try to get that across to for us, to young athletes, boys and girls. And, a lot of them are just still at the point in life where it's not as necessary, right? But we always feel like if you create these habits at a young age, it gets ingrained in you, and then all of a sudden things start to really take shape for you. So
exactly.
So what about now? Currently, you work at a nuclear power plant as a manager. So I could imagine that's just that's pretty intense and stressful, also.
Yeah, right. It is, and we want to generate electricity. We want to produce electricity so that all of our gadgets, all of your household lights, they run smoothly. There's no glitches. And the production of that electricity can be produced by several different ways, many different ways. And the fact that it's producing is the key. It's making money. It's making electricity. People are buying your electricity.
Right.
And yeah, there's a pressure there, pressure to produce, and a lot of us feel that all the time. Pressure to produce test results in school, get the A, get the A plus. In sports, get the goal, get the assist, get the rebound.
Yeah.
In life, get the good job, get the high dollar, make some friends, get the right friends. All those peer pressures, all those self-induced pressures, especially with kids nowadays, social media, making sure you get the likes. All those things are pressures, and in nuclear power, in generating electricity, it holds the same. You do have some stresses that you want to do.
Sure.
Now, each industry is different type of stresses, and when you're ready for it and you've got the foundation down, the stresses come natural. I mean, they come easier. You learn to deal with them. You learn how to operate in the environment.
Right. Well, I would assume there's a lot of space in that environment for things to go wrong. Right?
Yeah, it's a big machine. It's a big machine, and there's always pieces and parts that are designed to work that they just don't, and you got to fix them. And just think of it as a big machine. Leaky this, squeaky this, door won't close, lights won't turn on. Everything's computers nowadays, so sometimes the computers don't work. So it's one thing after the other.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild thinking that you. That as you're working at a nuclear power plant, it's just like, it's as simple to you as like, it's a big machine, just a big machine. But to us, it's like, it seems a little more complicated than that. But
yeah, it's mysterious, but it's not. It's boiling water. Get some water, get hot water, make some steam, turn a big wheel, turn a magnet, make electricity.
There it is. That's the secret.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But I mean, what you just said, the way you simplify that and make it very, very easy for somebody to understand, comes back to your points from earlier. It's muscle memory. It's habit. It's it so well, and you've been doing it long enough where you can simplify it, and that's probably what allows you to excel and be as good at it as you are.
Totally true. Very, very spot on.
Yeah, so let's just call them reps. All the studying, all the issues you've already had to, all the fires you've had to put out, have led you to a point where it's, I can look at this very complicated system and simplify it. So that would allow, I would assume, all the problem solving and finding solutions to come a little bit easier. Not that it is easy, but it would come easier than, someone who's just been there for a year or two.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't when I first started, I didn't have any of the answers in this industry. I had to be taught. I had to have you get a mentor. Find yourself a mentor. May not always be the coach. May just be another trusted peer,
Sure.
or somebody with experience. Find that mentor. Learn the tricks of the trade, so to speak, the ins and the outs. You got to still learn the technical nature and go to get some formal training.
Sure.
And people have natural abilities, and you probably see it all the time, Jimmy. People have natural abilities above and beyond the average in certain areas.
Absolutely.
And you want to build upon those. You want to maximize those abilities. And everybody has them. Everybody has them. The newest learner, the newest joiner to a sport or to a class or a subject, you can always find that person's skills and build upon them.
Yeah, for sure.
So you get a mentor. The mentor taught me. The mentors teach us all, and it prepares you as you go.
As far as
the experience, you shouldn't be shy. Your listeners should understand that being shy in an area, or not just eager, but be open. Be open to learning and to doing, and have a bias for action. Bias yourself to act on the field, in the classroom, at home.
Yeah.
Think about what has to get done and do it.
That's great advice. I've never heard it like that. A bias for action. I like that a lot. That's really good. Well, I think, like you said earlier, if we're talking about the younger generation with social media, not that social media is bad by any means, but information can travel a lot faster than it could, ever in the history of the world. So I think certain kids get caught up in that if they screw up or if they do something silly, that it's just going to travel a lot faster and people are going to find out. So the need to act or the want to act could be slowed down, could be hindered because of that. So
that's right.
Yeah. So just jump back to mentors. I mean, I'm sure in your experience in whatever industry, in whatever career you've been in, I'm sure you've had multiple mentors, right? And mentors can change, or if someone leaves that job, it's like when you're talking about a mentor, you're not talking about just one person and that's it. It's like, no, you keep seeking, right? You keep trying to learn from different people, and as things change, as maybe your skill sets, maybe your role changes, maybe a mentor changes, or maybe you yourself become a mentor. Right?
Yes.
And I'm sure even mentors have mentors.
Oh yeah, so absolutely.
Right.
Learning coaches is a big industry for mentoring and coaching. Professional coaches out there. You can find them, and mentoring is a key thing. Finding that mentor, really connecting, learning, having an open mind. Is a piece of the success.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And I've had most of my mentors, within athletics, being, as an athlete and as a coach. So I definitely can relate to that. But I could also say personally, as a young coach, I guess it's my personality. Just I figured like certain things that I was not good at, I was a little hesitant to ask, only because I thought like being in that role, I should know the answer. You know, someone's hired me and someone's trusting me, and it's like, oh, I guess I should know that. Whereas I've gotten older and I've gotten through it a little bit more, it's like, well, no, you can't know everything. But like what you say, being open to learn and trying and doing, and you know, your mini failures, you fail, you just figure it out and try it again, right? And it becomes basically, it's like one big experiment.
Yes, that's right. No, nobody is born knowing all the right answers. You got to learn. You got to learn.
Yeah.
And those of us listening, we all have learned from somebody on some subject. Now,
Yeah.
how are you passing that on? How are you teaching the next? How are you teaching your buddy, the next generation of youngsters, your friends? How are you teaching? Passing that knowledge on, passing those skills and the wisdom. And that's how you gain wisdom, by learning, by doing, by failing, by trying again, by being victorious.
Yeah, learning how to win, learning how to lose, and how to learn. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what about in your current role? I would assume, just based on the nature of it, is there any post testing protocols? Is there anything that you have to do to break down maybe, you know, the scenario you just went through, whether it be, you know, you fill out a form or you have to talk to a superior or your team and say, all right, you know, we just tested a meltdown and we had to go through these checkpoints. And is there anything like that? Like any kind of like after action report?
There is. So you go to work, you say, okay, you go to work, big deal, but at the nuclear power plant, any power plant, there's generally a simulator. It simulates the switches and the reactions of the system. And you do tests, you do emergencies, you practice and practice and practice. And afterwards, you have what we call here is a critique.
Okay.
The team gets together, goes through a checklist, talks about a critique. And it's not a blame game. It's more of a constructive, honest, and open feedback session.
Sure.
You gotta take your ego and you got to put it in your duffel bag. Put it in your bag, leave it there. When you do that and you have these constructive feedback sessions, you can actually grow and grow a great deal.
Yeah.
So you do these critiques, and when someone says, hey, you were not clear in these instructions, or you turn the switch too fast or in the wrong direction, you read a number, and the number you had, and you flipped the digits back, you read it backwards.
Sure.
In the heat of the moment, you don't know what you do. And sometimes we make a film of the episode, because people will say, I did not do that. And when you film it, you can see that you did do it and you did say it.
Right.
And they'll say,
sure.
You said the funniest thing. You said this and you said it totally wrong. In fact, you yelled at the guy. And you say, how did I yell at the guy? I was having fun.
Yeah, right.
And they play back the video and you're like, oh my goodness, I actually did do that. And I mean, Jimmy, you use filming in your area of expertise?
A ton of film.
So you probably see it all the time. You probably see how filming and feedback.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's correct. Sometimes it's constructive feedback on how to improve and how not to do something again. And other feedback is real positive and excellent feedback.
100%.
But
yeah,
we have a critique.
Interesting.
We do a critique. And we do a critique of the day sometimes, most days. We do a critique of the week, the performance of the week.
Oh, really?
In this business, it's a business. But we sit down and we spend, there's 10, 15 people sit down for an hour a week.
Okay.
Which is, it's like 15 person hours, which is a lot.
Seems pretty efficient
You have
to do that for an hour.
You got to prepare
to cover
for
all
it.
that for an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's organized. Somebody puts together the report and says, hey, this was our performance. We performed at 92%. Our goal was 96%.
Now, is that like
are
those internal metrics that you as a team or you as, your company want to critique you on, or is there like an international standard or a little bit of both?
There's both. There's international standards. There's national standards in the U.S. There's international standards. There's country standards. We have business standards. Yes. So the answer is yes, there is.
Yeah.
And you want to compare yourself to other people, other teams.
Right.
And not just your league. You want to compare yourself to maybe the national,
Sure.
averages.
Yeah.
But we do that. We say, what's the gap? The gap was 4%. The goal was 96. We got 92. We had a 4% gap.
And then that's what you focus on, the gap.
Dig into that gap. Figure out what the heck happened.
Huh. That's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, within these meetings, is there a built-in hierarchy, or is it kind of free conversation, or is it more like, one guy's the boss and everyone else kind of knows, what to say to whom?
Yeah, we always have a chairman of the meeting, chairperson, and that person sits there and runs it. There's always an agenda, so you follow the agenda. Because if it's not, I'm not going to say it's regimented where you can't bring up something, but you follow the agenda. At the end, there's a free, a minute or two per person for free just comments or discussion.
Okay.
But mostly it's led. It's a checklist of some sort or an agenda. Follow the steps and talk about these topics. And that appears to be the most efficient because you don't want to waste people's time. You want to give them feedback and let them you want them to get the nugget. What's the golden nugget that can be, what's the takeaway from this training session?
Yeah, and if you're critiquing a week's full of work into 1 hour, that's that's like the definition of efficiency. That's really good. So I would assume I would assume this type of structure is similar to your military background, with some sort of critique or
military background
or debriefing or
after action reviews.
Okay.
After action reports.
So same. All the same concepts, right? Like whatever it is the task was.
You pre-brief it. You execute.
Yeah, you're just comparing your actions and your execution off of the goal, right? Whatever that may have been.
Correct.
Interesting. So
there's always a lesson. There's always a lesson after a game. There's always a lesson after a practice. What's that lesson?
Yeah.
What's the one thing you can learn from, improve upon?
Now in this context, I would say the military is a little closer analogy to athletics, but for the military, were those after action reports? Were those like immediately after said mission, or was there a certain amount of time, or was it just different depending on the situation?
Everything. It was all situation dependent.
Okay.
Absolutely. A lot of times you try to do the after action review right then and there.
Right.
After
when it's fresh, when it's raw.
Yeah.
Yep.
After the action. The action can be the length of a game. The action can be the length of a military operation, which is sometimes short nature. A flight, a 1 hour flight, 2 hour flight.
Yep.
In the business, we did critiques after 30 days, and we did a critique of the past 30 days. So it's all dependent.
Sure.
It's all situational dependent.
Sure. Now, as a captain in the military, were you ever, for lack of better terms, were you ever in charge of those after action reports, and you had to discuss with somebody under you? And
Sure. Absolutely.
and was there
Yeah.
training for how to deal with a situation where somebody, I mean, I could imagine whether it's flying a Black Hawk or going through any kind of military operation, whether it's a simulation or not, I'm sure there's a huge adrenaline rush and there's a huge like emotional spike or crash, depending on what it is. And was there specifics that they as in I guess your superiors or just the organization in general wanted you to follow to deal with someone who's super emotional and to get the most out of it and to be efficient?
Yeah. Absolutely. The after action reviews that you would do after a flight, you would, like I said, typically you want to do it as close as possible to the event, so everything is fresh in people's mind. Yep. Those emotions are there. And when I said earlier, you got to take your ego and put it to the side, is because somebody who's emotional may not have liked what you did.
Correct.
You may have put that person in a tight spot.
Yeah.
And they're going to get it off their chest, and they're going to let you know about it in a constructive way, in a safe way. I mean, you do these reviews in a sense for safety and for increased performance or improved performance.
Right.
So you say, how is my team going to improve?
Right.
Is this time being spent? Will they have improved performance as a result of this feedback? And most of the time it's overwhelming yes, they absolutely will. And sometimes, things go wrong.
Right.
People get pissed. Emotions, tempers flare. And that happens, and that's got to be managed, of course, by the coach and by the, by the rest of the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
interesting.
Yeah. But if you do it as close as you can to the end of the game, as close as you can to the end of the business plan, the military operation, the flight,
yep.
The assault on the objective, you do those things so that the learning is the best. It's right after the fact.
Right. Right. Wow. Interesting. That's really cool. That's really cool. So we're gonna finish up. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, we really appreciate your time today, and all the stuff you shared with us was really good.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation with you, and hopefully your audience takes a nugget out of this, learns something, figures out how they can improve their performance.
Yeah, and I think they will.
That would be an excellent outcome.
Yeah, there's enough in there that anyone listening will learn something. So that's good, and we appreciate it. And best of luck with everything moving forward, and the lockdown you're in over there with the quarantine. And yeah. So Chuck, we appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch.
Okay, Jim. Thanks a million. Great talking to you.
All right.